Jackie Lucky, your financial planning maestro. This series of podcasts is aimed at financial planning professionals and also those who are looking to enter the financial planning profession. We will be talking during the podcast about all things certified financial planner certification related, talking to other CFPs around the world, and also we will be dropping in on some new entrants who've just entered the financial planning profession, and we'll be checking up along the way on a regular basis with them to see how they're getting on. I hope you enjoy today's podcast. Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Jackie Lucky, your financial planning maestro. And in today's podcast, we are revisiting our two friends, our two new people who have joined the profession in 2021. And that is Megan Wicks and James Winship. Hello to the pair of you.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi there.
And so we are going to do a regular catch up with the two of you to see how things have been going and also to share some of your insights and experiences that you've had over the last month or so since we last spoke to other potential employers of university students, of people who are coming into the profession that they might be recruiting. So hopefully you can pass on a few tips and hints to those employers along the way. So let's get cracking on the questions that we've got to ask you. So let's start. Megan, we'll start with you. How have you been doing since you last met? Because I think at the end of the last podcast, you said that you had just sat, I think, one of your exams. So how did all of the experience of sitting it and any results you've got to share?
Yes, so I sat RO5 and passed, which I'm over the moon with. Thank you for asking. Throughout work, I've done a lot more work with firms through our training competence scheme. So it's been a really busy couple of months since we last spoke. We have had quite a few new firms onboarding with us. And now we're doing lots more quarterly one-to-ones with advisors and paraplanners and administrators on our training and competence scheme. Right. So these past couple of weeks have been so busy, but it's great.
Great. Well done and congratulations. That's fantastic news. And so you feel that you have started to put your knowledge that you've gained through studying for that exam into practice pretty much straight away then?
Definitely. We're starting to do some file checks. Well, I'm starting to do some file checks through the training competence scheme, and through doing my protection exam, I'm starting to notice a lot more, I can identify a lot more. So it's definitely very helpful putting the theory into practice. Excellent.
Great. Well, we'll come back to that in a minute. James, let's have a quick catch up with you. What have you been up to since the last time we spoke?
So similar to Megan, actually, I sat my RO5 exam at the end of August, and I also passed that, which was a real relief, actually. I found that one a lot more difficult than the first one, personally, as I hadn't got stuck into very many protection cases before sitting the exam. Yeah. So it was something that was a little bit unfamiliar to me. So it was a real relief to pass that. And then since then, it's just been continuing to get stuck in to report writing, actually. It's been really busy the last couple of months. So it's been all hands on deck, really, covering as many different types of reports as we can, trying to get as many out as we can. But yeah, it's been really enjoyable. It's been a really good experience. It's been really quite interesting to learn about the different areas of report writing, and also a little bit of research into investment strategies and really getting stuck into the paraplanning role.
Gosh, it sounds like you've got a lot going on. So well done. Congratulations to you too for passing your exam. That's great going. And so, James, just staying with you for a minute, how, the exam that you've just passed, how has that helped you? Because I know obviously you've both been extremely busy, but particularly looking at the paraplanner role for a moment, how is that exam and the knowledge that you've gained from that? Either has it given you more confidence, or is it, like Megan just mentioned, is it making you look at things slightly differently when you're revisiting perhaps a review of a client or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's given me a lot more confidence. And like I touched on before, I hadn't really dealt with a lot of protection cases before sitting the exam. But then purely because we were so busy, we started to look at different types of cases. And I actually got given a lot of protection reports to write. And it was something that really, really helped me actually with the role. I think it was trying to put that theory and applying it to a practical real life example. Yeah. And it was something that it really helped me get to grips with kind of the knowledge aspect of it. And yeah, I found it really, really, really helpful actually. And it's something that, again, I hadn't ever thought of personally, but it might be something that I look into from a personal perspective, life insurance, mortgage cover eventually, if you ever, if I'm fortunate enough to get my own place eventually. Yeah. So yeah, it has been a real confidence boost for me.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I think it's really interesting, isn't it? Learning to apply the knowledge that you gain in these exams. I always used to think, particularly with pensions knowledge, when you start down those paths, it can be very complicated indeed. And so actually being able to apply that knowledge, it means it really sticks in your brain, I think. So that's a really great thing to do. So well done on all that. Sounds like the pair of you have been doing really well these last few months since we last spoke.
Yeah, we've been so busy. It's been great. Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on. And Megan, back to you actually to ask you a few more questions about how are you being trained to do those file checkings that you mentioned a few moments ago?
Mm-hmm. So in terms of the file check training, one of my colleagues, Maddie, she's created a very large specific document for me. It's basically an idiot's guide. So it's so easy to read. It goes through everything step by step from the moment you log onto the system. And I've been reading that alongside going into IO, getting some files from binders from the companies that we work with, and then I'll upload those onto the system myself. And this week I'll be doing some first checks. So, checking ID, checking client agreements, and then I'll pass that information on to my colleagues who will then do the second checks, and then again for third checks to make sure that it's all round. We've identified everything that we need to. So it's a very robust process, and I'm looking forward to getting involved with it more.
Yeah. And I think that sounds like a great process, actually, because it's making you aware of all the money laundering requirements and then making sure that you get those good practices in place, isn't it? Really, you start with those basics before you start moving on to, checking more of the technical information in the files.
Definitely. So when my knowledge has built up through more exams, the pension exams, for example, then I'll be able to do second checks myself. So hopefully that's something that I'll be able to work on in the next year.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds like a natural progression. And you've got somebody who you shadow as well during those other, when you will start learning the, how to do more of the file checking and start getting into the detail of the nitty gritty, will you?
Yes, definitely. So one of the team members, Alanis, she focuses on files. So I'll be shadowing her throughout the next few weeks, watching what she does and taking notes, and then, going off doing it myself.
Ah, yeah, that sounds really interesting. Oh, well, in our next podcast, we'll hear all about what happened with all of those things then, won't we?
Definitely.
So, James, let's pop back to you again and tell us a little bit more about how you have gone about creating reports for your clients that you've been working on. So I know you mentioned just a minute ago that you were you found yourself dealing more with, the protection side of reports. because that's fairly new to you, just walk us through what your thought process is and your approach, and how you've been trained to look at those reports and start to write them yourself.
Yeah, so we work in different hubs, which have about 5 to 6 different paraplanners in. And we try and vary the experience level. So we've got a hub leader who has been working in the field for quite a few years, all the way down to the junior paraplanners. So it's been really good because we've been able to get guidance from the more experienced members of the hub. We have little Skype group chats, so we can pester away with as many questions as whenever we have a question. And that's been really helpful, because if ever I've come across something that I haven't been 100% sure on, or even just wanted to double check just to confirm that my initial instincts were correct, I've been able to just quickly get clarification on that. But then it's also been really helpful because we've kind of had our own independence to work on the case and try and give it a go ourselves and learn from the mistakes that we've perhaps made. And that's been really good as well. We've been given previous cases that perhaps might be a little bit similar. They've always advised us to have a quick read over a previous case first, just to get kind of a background knowledge of what they're looking for in it, how to set it out, how to lay it out, and what kind of content really needs to be in there. So it's been really good for me. It's quite a proactive way of learning, I've found, and that's really suitable for me. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. So tell us about some of those mistakes that you've made then.
Oh, yeah. So
nobody's listening. It's just us having a chat.
Yeah, no, of course. It can just be a little thing from perhaps misreading how a platform charge is set out, or perhaps mislaying out a little bit of information that really needed to be put in there that I wasn't aware of. And it's been really good because I think through getting the cases back and with the amendments annotated on them, you can kind of keep a log for yourself. I know that I've had a document on where if ever I've made a mistake, I've quickly added it onto a little document, and then the next time I submit a case, I can have a look through and make sure that I've ticked off all the boxes.
Oh, that's a really great idea. That's a great tip for other people who perhaps are fairly new to the profession as well, isn't it? Thanks for passing that on. And so let's talk about some of the highs and lows. Megan, back to you. Just share with us, obviously the pair of you have been extremely busy by the sounds of things. Just share with us perhaps some of the things, anything that has happened in the last month or so that you've kind of thought, I wish I'd have, in hindsight, I wish I'd approached that a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in terms of highs, obviously the passing of RO5, it's another weight off our shoulders, and we're officially a third of the way through our diplomas. I had kept a log of questions as I was sitting RO5 of ones that I wasn't sure of, so that I could go away and show my boss, these are the questions that I struggled with. So maybe in hindsight, focusing on those specific areas that I struggled on with the exam, that would have been really helpful. I've also passed probation since we last spoke, which is great. So it's nice to know that we're officially part of the Verve Group. And in terms of lows, Jackie, I've started to revise for RO3, the tax exam.
Oh, gosh.
I know. So this one's particularly challenging for me because I don't consider myself to be mathematically minded. So I feel like the book doesn't read as easy as RO1 and RO5.
Yeah.
But on the bright side, my boss has given me a lot more support on this. So we've arranged weekly catch-ups to discuss aspects of RO3, the parts that I find the most challenging, some equations that I don't understand. He's been talking me through those. So I'm getting a lot of support which is really great.
Yeah.
And another part of this past month, as I've mentioned, has been so busy. We've had a lot of quarterly check-ins with firms and individuals, which made it slightly more challenging because as it had been September, everyone had gone back to school. So we were all trying to get cheap deals on holidays. So everyone was trying to arrange plans. So we all had to work out their structured plans so that we could work behind the scenes just as well as we always do.
Yes, and the pair of you managed to get away on your respective holidays as well, didn't you? So well done for doing that.
Thank you.
And I think, Megan, you are not alone. For many of our listeners have issues with tax calculations and tax generally. And I think one of the things that always used to annoy me when I was in practice was that, whoever in government is setting those tax changes, that it has quite a longer term impact when you're planning, and for you, checking the files. And obviously, James, when you come to doing these calculations yourself in your power planning role, then you've got to think through not just what it is at the moment or what it used to be, but actually, potential changes and other things on the horizon. So things like, I was chatting to some planners the other day and they were saying, the government made an announcement that they're going to freeze the state pension for the next 5 years. And so, when you're planning, you've got to factor those things into a financial plan when you're creating it. So obviously, Megan, for you, when you're checking the files, you've got to make sure that you're aware of all of these little nuances where those kind of what appear to be minor changes can be made. And actually, they're having quite long-term ramifications if you miss it, or, if for James, when you're doing your power planning work, if you don't pop it in when you're doing your spreadsheets, or, you're using your software for projections. So I think tax is one of those necessary evils, I would say. And you can come round. I'm going to do a tax calculation, actually. So you can pop round on the Skype and I'll show you how I do my tax calculations later, if you like. It's one of the things I'm doing at the moment as well. And it's one of those things, I think. James, how have you found doing calculations and things like that, learning all the different nuances? Because there's so many different things, particularly with tax, that's kind of flying at you from left, right and centre, isn't it?
Yeah, my mind immediately goes back to I had a case which had quite a complex IHT calculation in it. And it was one of the first times that I'd really actually had a go at doing the calculation myself. And it was just trying to get your head around. I remember I had my book open, trying to look through and make sure that I'd done everything in not just the right steps, but in the right order at the same time. Yeah. So yeah, it was a challenging experience. But like I say, it's really good, especially once you learn those mistakes and you realise that, once you note them down and you can learn from them and make sure that you don't repeat them again. And especially for me, I know that whenever I make an error, it really sticks in my mind. So the next time I come round to do it, I'll know not to do it that way again.
Yes, but don't overload your brain, because, if you make the odd error here and there, in 10 years' time, your brain will be exploding. But I think it's a great thing to persevere with, because I think particularly for both of you in your early stages of the career, then laying these firm foundations and, Megan, as you were saying, you're getting over the bumps of things that kind of are perhaps less appealing, shall we say. We all have favourite things in things financial services related. We'll have naturally, guided towards things, and you think, I could do that because it's easy. But I guess it's like many things in life, isn't it, that you have to actually take the rough with the smooth, because you need to know quite a lot about a lot of different things. Some things naturally you think, that's easy, I can take that on board, and other things you think, okay, I'm going to swallow this one and get on with it, because this one's going to be a bit tough. So but I think that's a really positive thing, and really great, actually, Megan, for you to be able to share with us that, just like all of us, although many people won't like to admit it, but we all have the good things that we like and not so good things that we don't really like. And I think particularly income tax calculations, I have to say, if I met a very large number of paraplanners and financial planners who are not too hot on an income tax calculation. So you won't be alone on any of that.
That's reassuring.
So, James, give us a few of your highs and lows and some of the things that you've been grappling with.
So like Megan, I also passed probation since we last spoke, which is, again, brilliant relief, really good feedback from the people above. And then I think one that I'd like to highlight, one of the highs of the last month or so, is actually, it was just getting good feedback on a couple of the reports that I've written. So recently, because we've been very busy, we actually sat down with a couple of advisors and we had a little bit of a meeting with them just to make sure that we were ticking all the boxes that they wanted, and just to double check that they were getting out of us what they needed and they would like. Yeah. And then it was a couple of the reports that I did for one particular advisor, and I'd put an awful lot of work into them. They were very long reports. And he just dropped a little email back saying, thanks for this, James. This has been absolutely excellent. The clients absolutely loved it. And it was just a real big confidence boost knowing that you'd put all the work in and that it was really appreciated from the other end.
Yeah, that's lovely, isn't it? And I think that's a great tip actually for anybody who's working with, newer people to the profession, and actually people who've been like me, who've been around a bit longer, because we all like to hear a little bit of praise when you've put your heart and soul into something. And, when like you've created these significantly sized reports and worked really hard on them to put them all together in the right order and, to help clients understand because what can be very complicated situations, can't it? I'm sure, in a very straightforward way. And that's a skill in of itself. It's not just about having that technical knowledge, but actually being able to explain, in written form without bamboozling the client, without using, stacks of jargon, is a really important thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it'll really help me when we're moving forward with cases for these particular clients, because there were certain things that I was adding in that I was perhaps over elaborating on, which to me seemed really important. But actually, I think when you take a step back and you look at it impartially, you could perhaps be a bit more concise with those little parts. And it'll be something that I really learn from moving forward, I think, as well.
Yes, yeah, it was really interesting. I can remember when I first started in the profession, my boss at the time used to say to me, write lots, Jackie, write lots. So I used to write lots. And then when I went to work for another firm, they would say to me, Jackie, what are you doing? Just writing pages. You don't need to write pages. Write a paragraph. Why put it on a page? And I was like, oh, okay. So then I went from writing lots to writing next to nothing. And then when I went to another place, they said to me, Jackie, what's the matter with you? You've got to write more than one paragraph. And I was like, oh, and so you've got to find your own balance, but you've got to be succinct, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That actually would lead me into perhaps one of the laws from the month was just in terms of caseloads. It was the busiest month, I think, that as a business, I think we've ever had. So it was a real wake up for me in terms of my organisational skills. And it's something that I'd perhaps wish that I'd have done a little bit better if I could go back and redo it again. Because I know particularly I was guilty of it at university. I try and organise things internally and mentally, but I realised that when the caseload starts to stack up and that you've got multiple things to do during the day, that's really not an effective way of organising. And I think since then I've invested in a calendar and a diary with a to-do list on it. And it's something that I've really, really learned from, I think, over the past month. And it's helped me get on top of my workload a lot more than I perhaps was doing before.
That's a really good tip. And have you, I don't know if either of you have read a book called Getting Things Done?
Not yet.
No? Okay, I will send you the links. There's a great book called Getting Things Done. And it's not specifically about financial services, it's about all professions. So anybody who takes up a new job, it has lots of tips in there about how to kind of challenges you on how to organize your time, how to book time, if you're struggling and somebody else is really busy, how to book time with them, in a sensitive way so you can still get what you need out of a meeting that you need to have. But obviously you're not taking up too much of somebody else's time. So I'll send you the links to that book because it's a really good book to help people get themselves organized. So, and you can tell me what you think about that next time we see each other.
Yeah, that would be appreciated. Thank you, Jackie.
That's my pleasure. So let's look forward then. And Megan, what are you up to in the next month or so? I guess where we are, we're October now, aren't we? So we're rapidly approaching Christmas. So Christmas aside, what are you doing in the next kind of 1 to 2 months? What's on the cards?
With it being a new quarter, I'm really looking forward to discussing new content in our quarterly check-ins with firms. So we'll be discussing all sorts of new regulations and keeping our clients up to date with the financial industry's ever-changing nature. So I'm looking forward to that. We've also, as part of my personal training plan, we've decided that I should focus on specific topics every month to help develop my knowledge. I'm not sure if I mentioned that last time, but this month I'm focusing on ESG. So I'll be researching into that throughout this month, and I'll feed back to my boss and maybe to you as well on what I've discovered.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. And last month I actually wrote a piece on training and competence, and the piece I wrote got adapted and turned into one of our blogs by one of my colleagues, which was also really, really nice.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, you've obviously got a naturally great style of writing if they've turned it into a blog already.
It was adapted, but they used the structure of it, which was really refreshing to actually get involved in something that gets sent out.
Yeah.
So that was good. And non-work wise, I've been given the go-ahead with the graduation date. So even though both James and I graduated non-officially from uni last year in July, I've finally been told that I can graduate in November and have the full-on ceremony, cap and gown. So probably next time we speak, I'll have done that. So I can give you some updates on that too.
Oh, that would be fantastic. More photos for the website. That sounds good. Excellent. Well, look forward to hearing all about that, and well done that you're finally going to get there and get all the recognition in public that you definitely deserve. The pair of you working so hard. So great. Look forward to hearing all about that. And James, what are you going to be up to in the coming months?
So I'm really looking forward to the caseload settling down, I think, over the next month or so, particularly as we're getting more used to the different report types and the clients. I think I'm really looking forward to that one. We've also got some new starters that are starting in our hub as of next month. And that's also something that I'm really looking forward to, because I've been asked to help out and help them get familiar with kind of the processes behind paraplanning. And I think it'll be something that really tests my own knowledge and sees how far I've come along in the past 3 or 4 months or so. I think that'll be really good. We've also got our Art of Finance courses, which will be looking towards our next exam, the RO3 exam. And again, I really like those because it's a round table kind of situation where you get put with others on the course that are at a similar level to you.
Yeah.
And it's really good because you can just ask questions. Again, we all have a little group chat going that if you ever get stuck with any revision, or if you find any useful links, any useful videos that you found helpful with your revision, we can post them in there. So it's something that I'm really looking forward to, particularly as with it being so busy, it's been hard to progress with my revision lately. Yeah. So I think, again, it'll be just something that really helps out and helps me feel more prepared for my next exam.
Sounds good. And you also mentioned a little bit earlier in our interview that you've done some investment research as well. So I guess you'll be carrying on with that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we're getting more experienced, they're trying to kind of diversify the types of reports that we're looking at. So like I mentioned earlier, I started to look at a few more protection reports. We've also done a few mortgage ones now, which were very interesting as well. But particularly for me, I've been looking at kind of annual suitability reports. And it's something that I'm now finding it's kind of like my bread and butter, really. Like, I've done so many of them over the last month or so that I know exactly what I'm doing with them. I feel really confident. And yeah, so I've quite enjoyed been able to have a go at lots of different kinds of reports for different clients, for different investment amounts. It's been really interesting.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to hearing more about that as you delve around in the very interesting world of investments. Well, you're both, I guess, delving around in the world of investments with more general investments and ESG as well. So perhaps we can compare notes when we catch up next time.
Definitely.
Okay, well, we will leave it there. And thank you very much to both James and Megan for spending some time with us and catching up with us again. It's great to see and hear all about what you've been up to and sharing some of your insights with other people who are new to the profession, and also, importantly, to the employers who are employing them. So hopefully we can give them some tips along the way during our discussions. So thanks very much to the pair of you for joining me today.
Thank you for having us again.
Thank you, Jackie. It's been brilliant. Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. It's quite interesting to listen to the different views and discussions with different people, isn't it? Join me next time when we'll be discussing all things certified financial planner related and catching up with those new to the financial planning profession. Bye for now.